She told me to forget about it. Said it like she was doing me a favor. It's just jewelry, Dana said, all sharp smiles and smoother lies. You're being dramatic. Just jewelry. That ring lived through 3 generations. Mama wore it to every Sunday service and to my high school graduation. That necklace, Grandma's wedding gift. That brooch, the one she pinned to her sweater the day she buried Dad. Just jewelry doesn't make your chest ache when it's gone. But Dana had always been like that. Cold. Calculated. The kind of person who said, "It's just stuff," while quietly selling it on consignment behind your back. And I had let it go until I found the receipt. It was tucked inside one of the recipe books Dana had shoved into a donation bin. I opened the cover, looking for Mama's apple crisp note, and instead, I found a printout, estate auction drop-off, 7 pieces. Fine vintage jewelry. Initial valuation, $3,500, signed Dr. Whitmore. That was her signature. She hadn't even bothered to hide it. I sat at Mama's old kitchen table, the one with the coffee ring stains and worn-down corners, and stared at that piece of paper like it was a betrayal written in fire. She didn't even ask. She didn't even say she was thinking about it. She just walked into Mama's bedroom 2 weeks after the funeral, took the wooden jewelry box from the dresser, and said, "You don't wear jewelry anyway. I'll handle it." As if handling meant owning. I should have stopped her. But grief made my voice feel smaller than her intentions. And she was always louder. Always faster. But not this time. I called the auction house, asked if the items were still available. They said yes. Scheduled for Saturday, 10:00 a.m. So I made a plan. I didn't tell anyone, not my husband, not my coworkers, not even Aunt Ray, who would have marched into Dana's house and demanded it all back with her purse swinging. No, this wasn't a fight, it was a reckoning. I showed up early, wore Mama's brocade blazer, navy blue with silver trim, the same one she wore the day she met the mayor. I wore her scent too, that faint lavender perfume that still lingered on her scarves. It made me feel steady, sharp. I sat in the front row, catalog in hand, and when they brought out lot number 112, vintage diamond cluster ring with heirloom setting, I didn't blink. That was the ring. Mama's ring, the one Dana used to try on as a girl and say, "One day this'll be mine." The auctioneer barely finished the description before I raised my hand. Opening bid $400. A man in the back raised his paddle. $450. I raised mine again. $500. And then she walked in. Dana, in heels, designer coat, lipstick too red for daylight. Her eyes scanned the crowd until she saw me. I didn't look away. She hesitated, her mouth twitching. The auctioneer called 600. No one moved. Sold number 14. That was me. Next came the brooch, then the necklace, then the charm bracelet with Mama's initials etched on the clasp. I bid on every single piece. I won every single one. Dana sat down 3 rows behind me, arms folded, rage rolling off her in waves. But she never raised her paddle. She never dared. And when it was over, I stood up, turned around, and met her eyes. "I thought you said it was just jewelry," I said softly. Her mouth opened then closed. For once she had no story to sell. I walked past her without another word. Because what she never understood was this: you can sell an object, but you can't sell memory. And that day, I didn't just buy back the jewelry. I bought back the part of our mother she tried to erase. The jewelry box sat on Mama's dresser for as long as I could remember, carved from cherry wood, with a faded velvet lining and a tiny brass key that never really worked. The top had a rose inlaid in mother of pearl. One petal was chipped, the result of Dana slamming it shut during an argument when we were kids. Mama never fixed it. She said the imperfection gave it character. Every Sunday morning when Mama got ready for church, she'd open that box with the kind of reverence other people reserved for fine china or family Bibles. She'd lift each piece out slowly, like she was remembering not just when she got it, but who she was when she wore it. And she'd tell the stories again and again. "This necklace was from your grandma. She wore it to her 25th wedding anniversary. This ring, my engagement ring from your father. He couldn't afford much, but he said the stone reminded him of my eyes. which I thought was ridiculous because I've never had that kind of sparkle. We'd laugh. Dana would roll her eyes. I'd listen. Dana always brushed it off, said they're just old things. But they weren't. They were timestamps, anchors to women who came before us, threads in the tapestry of who we were. I was 13 when Mama let me wear the rose gold chain for the first time. I'd been invited to a school banquet for some reading award. I didn't feel special until she clasped it around my neck and said, "You carry more of us in you than you think." Dana never wanted the jewelry while Mama was alive. She liked new things, bright, polished, expensive. But when Mama passed suddenly, she wanted the box. And she didn't ask. It was the day after the funeral. I was in the kitchen sorting thank you cards and leftover casserole trays. Dana was upstairs. I heard drawers opening, closets creaking, and I just assumed she was packing a few of her old things from childhood. When I came up, the box was gone. "I took it," she said plainly, already buckling the case in her car. "It's fine. You never wore any of it." I stared at her. "That's not the point." She rolled her eyes. "We both have memories. I just took something tangible." "You mean you took everything?" She shrugged. "Don't be so dramatic." The next morning she was gone. Not just the box, but a few other things too. Mama's Bible, the Sunday hat with the satin ribbon, the photo of Grandma holding the necklace Dana would later sell. She didn't even say goodbye. I tried to justify it. Maybe she was grieving in her own way. Maybe she took the box because she didn't know how to process what was in it. Maybe I told myself she just needed to feel closer to Mama. But I knew better. Dana had always taken. She took the spotlight at every school performance, even when I had practiced harder. She took credit for Christmas gifts we both saved for. She took Dad's attention when he came home tired and only had a little patience left. And now she took the one thing Mama never said out loud, but I always knew she meant for both of us. That box wasn't Dana's. It was ours. It held the lineage of women who endured, who sacrificed, who built their lives with calloused hands and unspoken strength. And when Dana carried it out of the house without a word, she wasn't just taking jewelry, she was trying to rewrite history. Alone. Her name only. Her version only. I didn't say anything at the time. What was there to say that wouldn't sound petty or bitter? But I never forgot. Every time I opened Mama's recipe book and saw the blank space where the note used to be tucked. Every time I passed her photo and noticed the necklace was missing. Every time I dreamed of her hands placing that brooch on her coat before Sunday service. I remembered. And that's what Dana underestimated. She thought stealing the box erased the past. But memory doesn't come with a lock. And it was memory, not money, that would bring me back to that auction. Not to take revenge, but to take back meaning. After I found the receipt, I didn't sleep that night. I laid in bed staring at the ceiling, the paper still on my nightstand, its weight heavier than gold. I kept reading the line, "Initial valuation, $3,500, over and over, like it was some kind of joke. To Dana, that's all it was worth. 3 generations of love. Of weddings, baptisms, funerals, first dances, and last goodbyes. All of it boiled down to a 4-digit number and a consignment form. I knew she didn't need the money. She lived in a condo overlooking the bay, drove a car that probably had its own Wi-Fi. No, this wasn't about cash. It was about control. That was always Dana's game. She didn't just want to win, she wanted the final word. She wanted to close the book, lock it shut, and toss the key into the ocean while she stood there smiling. But this time, she left a page open. And I planned to write the ending myself. I called the auction house the next morning, my hands still trembling. A woman named Carla answered, polite, professional, and precise. Yes, she confirmed. We've received 7 jewelry pieces under that account. They'll be featured in our estate sale this Saturday. Are they on display? They will be the morning of the auction. Viewing begins at 9:00 a.m. Bidding at 10:00. I asked if I needed a paddle to bid. She said yes. I asked how to register. She gave me the steps. And just like that, I had a plan. It wasn't a scheme, not revenge, not a show. It was a rescue mission. I didn't tell anyone. This wasn't something I needed an audience for. I didn't want support or sympathy. I just wanted my mother's memory back out of the glass case, away from strangers, back where it belonged. On Saturday morning, I arrived 20 minutes before the doors opened. The parking lot was already half full: estate buyers, vintage collectors, old men with wrinkled eyes and big wallets. No Dana. I stepped inside when they opened the doors and made my way through tables of antique books, crystal vases, old dolls with cracked faces and faded ribbons. And then I saw it. Lot 1912 through number 118. The velvet display tray was positioned under a glass case, each piece labeled in small white print. 112. Diamond cluster ring, vintage rose gold setting. 113. Cameo brooch oval. 114. Pearl earrings, 1940s style. 115. Charm bracelet with engraved initials, EM. 116. Sapphire teardrop necklace. 117. Gold filigree hairpin. 118. Silver locket with photo inside, unverified. Unverified. They didn't even know it was Mama's. I signed in, got paddle number 14, sat in the front row, and waited. The room buzzed. People chatted, sipped coffee, marked their catalogs. At 9:58 a.m., I heard the click of heels. I didn't have to turn around. I knew it was her. Dana had always made an entrance. She was wearing a fitted gray coat, designer sunglasses perched on her head, and a too confident smile that faltered the second she saw me. She stopped 3 rows back, arms folded, eyes narrow. I turned around, met her gaze, held it. She tilted her head slightly, lips pressed into a thin line, and then I turned back toward the auctioneer. Lot 1112. Diamond cluster ring, rose gold setting. Opening bid $400. I raised my paddle immediately. 400. Another bidder called out 450. I raised again. 500. Dana stood frozen. She didn't raise her paddle. She didn't move. Sold. Paddle 14. Next lot. The brooch. Opening at $150. I raised my paddle again. So it went. Each piece, each memory, each moment she thought she could erase, I reclaimed, with a steady hand and an even steadier heart. By the time the final piece was called the locket with the photo still tucked inside, I barely blinked as I raised my hand. Sold. 7 lots. 7 pieces of my mother's soul. Back where they belonged. When the final gavel hit, I stood. Slowly. Deliberately. I turned to Dana. She didn't speak. She just stared at me, mouth parted, slightly caught between fury and disbelief. I didn't smile, didn't gloat. But I did lean in close enough so only she could hear me. You can sell the jewelry, I whispered, but you'll never own what it meant. And with that, I walked out. Jewelry in hand, heart intact. I didn't take the jewelry home. After the auction, I stopped by a little storefront off Maple and 6th, an old brick building with stained glass in the windows and a hand-painted sign above the door, St. Mary's Community Chapel. Inside, the air smelled like cedar polish and candle wax, the same place Mama used to bring us when we were little every Saturday morning for soup kitchen duty, every Sunday afternoon for choir. I sat with Pastor Ruth, who still wore the same warm smile she had when Mama was alive. Her eyes lit up when I handed her the velvet pouch. "Are you sure?" she asked, unwrapping the pieces one by one, her fingers trembling. They're beautiful. I'm not giving them to a vault," I said. "They were never meant to be locked away. They were meant to be worn, shared, seen." She nodded slowly, understanding in full. "I want you to use them," I said. "Loan them to the young women on their wedding days. Let little girls wear them during choir concerts. Give them life again." She smiled through tears. "Your mother would love that." I reached into my bag and pulled out the last thing, a brass nameplate etched carefully and mounted on a plaque. It read, "In memory of Eleanor May Whitmore, whose hands held more love than gold." Pastor Ruth took the plaque and held it against her chest for a long moment. "We'll place it in the glass display next to the altar, right where everyone can see it." I left the chapel lighter than I had felt in weeks. The jewelry was no longer Dana's. It wasn't even mine. It belonged to Mama again, woven back into the lives of those she touched. The next Sunday, the dedication was held. I arrived early, wore a soft lavender dress, Mama's favorite color. I sat in the second pew with Aunt Ray and Pastor Ruth. The jewelry was laid out on a silk cloth beneath the plaque. Sunlight from the stained glass window cast red and blue halos across the gold and silver. People came, neighbors, friends, even women Mama had taught to sew. They all brought stories how Mama loaned them a scarf before an interview, how she stayed late after Bible study to braid someone's hair, how she made every little girl feel like royalty. And then halfway through the service she walked in. Dana, wearing black like it was armor. She stood in the back, arms crossed. She didn't sit, didn't sing, but she watched. And when Pastor Ruth read aloud the plaque inscription, something in Dana's face cracked just slightly. She looked at the display, then down at the floor, then back at me. After the service, people gathered around the jewelry, pointing out which pieces they remembered Mama wearing, and telling stories that made the room swell with memory. Dana stayed near the exit. Aunt Ray noticed. "Is she going to speak to you?" I shook my head. "She doesn't have the words." "She doesn't have the right," Aunt Ray muttered. I walked over anyway. For a second, Dana looked like she might walk out, but she didn't. She stood her ground, but not proudly, just quietly. "I didn't expect you here," I said. "I didn't expect any of this." She answered, voice low. "You thought selling the box would be the end of it." I thought it wouldn't matter. I nodded. "It mattered, but not the way you thought." She stared at the jewelry behind the glass. Her eyes landed on the brooch. "I didn't know you'd find the receipt." "That's the thing about paper trails," I said. "They always lead somewhere." She looked at me. "Are you going to keep punishing me?" "I'm not punishing you," I replied. "You did that yourself. I just undid what you tried to erase." Silence stretched between us. She didn't apologize, but she didn't deny anything either. "I'll be leaving town next week," she finally said. I nodded once. Safe travels. She turned and walked out. No hugs, no closure, just distance. But this time, I was the one who stayed. Because the final piece wasn't jewelry. It was remembrance. It was community. It was a name etched on a plaque and a story told in sunlight. And that was something she could never touch again. Dana left town quietly, just like she came in, only this time there was no jewelry tucked under her arm. I heard she moved to a condo in Austin. Someone said she's dating again. Someone else said she's doing well. But no one says her name with the same affection anymore. It's just Dana, a chapter people prefer not to reread. And me, I stayed. I kept my routines. Grocery runs on Thursdays, choir practice on Wednesdays, coffee with Aunt Ray every Sunday afternoon. And every once in a while, someone new walks through the chapel doors, eyes wide, and pauses at the glass case by the altar. They don't see value in carrots or clarity. They see legacy. The plaque is still there, in memory of Eleanor May Whitmore, whose hands held more love than gold. And the jewelry, it lives now. It's worn. On Easter, little girls wear the brooch pinned to white dresses and twirl like they're in a fairy tale. Brides walk down the aisle wearing the necklace that once belonged to a woman who cooked, cleaned, and carried a family through decades. A teenager wore the ring to her high school awards banquet last month, just like I did years ago. And every time I see one of those pieces shine under the sunlight, I know Mama's still here. Dana thought taking the jewelry box would rewrite the past. She thought she could control the narrative who got remembered, and how. But memory doesn't live in boxes. It lives in repetition, in stories told over dinner, in small hands reaching for old things with new wonder, in a name whispered in gratitude. Mama used to say, "You don't have to hold something to keep it." I didn't understand that as a child, but now I do. She took the box. I kept the story. And that story, once broken, is whole again, not because I shouted, but because I stayed. Not because I won something back, but because I never let it go in the first place. Weeks after Dana left, I got a letter in the mail. No return address, but I knew the handwriting. Inside was a check for $3,500. No note, just the check. I didn't cash it. I framed it. Hung it right next to the glass case with Mama's jewelry. Because some debts can't be paid in money. Only in acknowledgement. Only in silence. only in finally realizing what you tried to sell was never yours to begin with. Now, when people ask me why I went to the auction, why I didn't just let it go, I tell them this because some stories aren't mine to bury, they're mine to protect. And if they ask whether it was worth it, I tell them to visit the chapel. Watch the sunlight hit that brooch on a little girl's sweater. See a woman tear up when she fastens a necklace for her daughter's wedding. Read Mama's name on that plaque. And then tell me, if it was ever just jewelry, have you ever had something taken from you that held no value to others, but meant everything to you? Have you ever fought not for the thing, but for what it stood for? Share your story in the comments. Because sometimes the most powerful legacy is the one they couldn't steal.